Hello and welcome to another one of these ADD videos. Today we're going to be looking at some more inequality examples. First thing to do is recognize that this is a power of x greater than 1 here, so we have to do sign analysis. The next thing we have to do is get this 4 over to this side. So if we subtract the 4 on both sides, we get 3x squared minus 7x minus 6 is less than or equal to 0. Multiply 3 times negative 6, you're going to get a negative 18. What are the factors of negative 18 that add up to a negative 7? Be a negative 9 and a positive 2. And you break out the middle term into those two terms. If this is not familiar, go back and watch the factoring by grouping video. Plus 2x minus 6. Factor out the common 3x of the first two. You're left with 3x, you're left with x minus 3. Then factor out the 2 and you're left with x minus 3 again. So then you're left with x minus 3 times the sum of the coefficients of the two sets of parentheses. And you get that. Okay. So then plot your number line. Negative 3. Actually, no, it's negative 2/3. Sorry. If you set that one equals 0. If you set the other one equals 0, you get a positive 3. Okay, both of these get closed dots because of the equal sign right there. So I put a closed dot there, and I put a closed dot there. And then I pick a test point to the left, negative 1, negative, and negative, right? Just plug in, and it doesn't matter, negative 1 minus a negative number is negative. Negative 3 plus 2 is going to be negative 2, so the 2 multiply together to give you a positive. Plug in a 0, you get a negative times a positive, which is a negative. And then plug in a 4, you get 2 positive times each other, so you get a plus. And I wanted less than 0 was what the question was asking, so it's in between those two numbers. So your final answer here would be a negative 2/3 bracket 2, 3 bracket. Okay? Sign analysis. Why? Power of x is greater than 1, and we have an inequality. Those two things. The other time when you do sign analysis is whenever you have a fraction inequality. But in this case, we got a number that's not 0 on this side, so what we're going to have to do is a little algebra. Just find a common denominator, subtract it over. So you're going to get a 4x plus 2 over x minus 1 minus 2. And then the common denominator would be x minus 1, so you'd multiply it on top and bottom. And then here, when you distribute that negative 2 through, you're going to get 4x plus 2 minus 2x plus 2. Again, all I did was multiply that times both of those. And then that's all over x minus 1. So you got 2x plus 4 over x minus 1, and then if you set the top equal to 0, you're going to get a negative 2, looks like, and then the bottom equals 0 gives you a positive 1. Now, both of these get open dots because there is no equal sign there. Test to the left, plugging in negative 3 in this simplified version, right? The one that's actually greater than 0 now. I forgot to write that down. So here we have a negative 3, so negative 6 plus 2 is a negative number over negative 3 plus minus 1 is also negative. Two negatives make you a positive. Plug in a 0, you're going to get a negative. Plug in a 3, you're going to get a positive. And in this case, we were asked where it's greater than 0, so it would be in these two regions here. So your final answer would be negative infinity to negative 2 union 1 to infinity. And parentheses everywhere. Okay? Last example. Here we have both power of x greater than 1 fraction. So we'd set the top equal to 0, and you'd get 2, and the bottom equals 0, and you get plus or minus 4. So if you draw this on a number line, now be careful when you do these. You should be aware that the plus or minus 4 came from the denominator. So even though there's an equal sign here, the 4 and the negative 4 get open dots, because you can never equal 0 in the denominator, and it's one of the fundamental laws there. So then we have, if we set the numerator equal to 0 and the x equals 2, and that one can get a closed dot at 2. So if I plug in I'm going to write this in its factored form, it's just easier to deal with. Oops, should be a 4 right there, not a 5. Sorry about that. So if I plug in a negative 5, the top's going to be a negative 25 minus 10 is negative, and then the bottom's going to be negative times a negative gives me a positive, right? So then negative divided by positive is a negative. Then if I plug in a 0, we'll work in between here. That's going to be 2 negatives, so that's a positive. And then plug in a 3, that's 15 minus 10 is positive, 9 minus 16, and, or if you want to plug them in individually, they're still negative, so positive over a negative is a negative, and then the bottom one is a positive, or 5, if I use 5. So then this is asking for negative, so my final answer would be negative infinity to negative 4 parentheses union. I promise you that's a U. Let's try that again. 2 to 4. Oops, I made a mistake. Anybody see it? Hoping you were paying attention. Just checking to see if you fell asleep on me. Alright, that has to be bracket. Why? Because it's a closed dot. Again, the 4 and the negative 4 are open dots because they came from the denominator. Hope I've clarified things a little bit on inequalities. They can get a little tricky, so practice, practice, practice. Make sure they're always equal to 0 or less than 0. Greater than 0, and fraction inequality, or a power of x greater than 1 inequality, you have to do the sign analysis, the tests. Okay? Practice, practice, practice. Thank you and have a nice day.